Far away in a galaxy filled with light and shadow, there was a strange planet where no one dared to go. Not even the bravest alien warriors wanted to step on its surface. Because they feared one thing, they feared the girl called Xira was not. Like others, she was not born with power, but power was given to her in a way no one understood. She did not choose it, she did not want it, but now she had it, and the universe would never be the same again. She looked young, maybe 16 or 17. Her skin was blue like the night sky, her eyes glowed silver, in the dark her hair flowed like mist, and her voice was soft like wind through glass. She walked slowly, always alone through forests and mountains, across frozen lands and burning deserts, always searching, but no one knew what she was searching for. Every time someone tried to follow her, they never came back. The next day the plants would grow over their bodies. The wind would carry away their weapons, and all that was left was silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy, the kind of silence that says something terrible has happened. Some said her breath was poison, others said her blood was fire. Many believed her bite could kill any alien instantly, and maybe they were right, because no one who met her lived long enough to speak. She never ran, she never hid when she saw danger, she simply walked through it, and the danger vanished like smoke. Some called her a curse, some called her a ghost, some even prayed to her like a god of death, but she was none of those things. She was just a girl who had lost everything. The truth was that Shira had been taken when she was only a child, taken by a race of scientists who believed in weapons more than peace. They wanted to make something that could destroy their enemies quickly and without mercy. So they used Shira. They changed her body, her blood, her breath. They turned her into a living weapon, but she escaped, she broke free, and now she walked the stars with no home, no family, only a body full of deadly secrets. Still, there was one strange thing about her, one mystery that no one could explain. She never hurt humans. Not even by accident. Once a human ship crashed near the cold mountains of her planet. Everyone died, except one man. His name was never known, but he was found weeks later, alive, weak and shaking, but alive, he said. She came to him, she looked at him, touched his face, then walked away, and he did not die after that. Humans began to wonder who she really was. Maybe she was not a monster, maybe she had a heart, maybe she could be reached, maybe her story was not yet finished. Shira felt the same. She did not know why humans were different. She only knew that when she looked at them, something inside her felt calm, like the storm had passed, and the sky was clear. She had never spoken to one, never stayed close for long, but still something pulled her to them like gravity, like a voice calling from across the stars. So she kept walking, waiting for that voice to speak louder, waiting for the day she would meet a human again, and maybe this time she would not walk away in the dark lands of Verix 7, where the ground was black glass and the sky burned red. Shira stood alone again, her bare feet silent on the sharp stones, her eyes watching the sky, waiting. The wind blew dust across her shoulders, and somewhere far away engines roared. It was a ship, a human ship, coming down fast, smoke in its trail, metal tearing through air, lights blinking through the cloud. She took one step forward, then another, her heart quiet but not cold, her breath soft but not deadly. Not yet. She did not know his name. She did not know his mission. She only knew that he was coming, and that he was human. The sky cracked open. The ship fell like a broken arrow, fire trailing behind it as it crashed into the earth, shaking the mountains and lighting the night. Shira did not run, she did not hide. She walked toward the wreck, her silver eyes never blinking, her hands open at her sides, her steps slow like time itself. She was not angry, she was not afraid, she was not sure of anything, only that something important had arrived, something that might change her forever. Maybe this one would live, maybe this one would not fear her, maybe this one would see the girl behind the death. Maybe this was the beginning, not the end. Asterisk. His name was Jack, a simple name for a man with a not-so-simple life. He had grown up hearing stories about alien planets and deadly creatures, and now he was flying through space on a real mission, with a real crew heading for a real unknown world. The ship was called the Starling Light, and fast built for quiet entries and quick escapes. It was made for research, but sometimes it was used for more than that. This time it was scouting a planet called Verix 7, a place marked as high risk due to strange signals and missing ships. Jack was excited, but also nervous. He had trained for years to be ready for anything, but nothing could prepare him for what was waiting on that black and burning planet. The Starling broke through the red clouds, with fire licking its wings. The wind screamed, the engines groaned, the crew held tight as the ship shook like a leaf in a storm. Then something hit them, something unseen, a force like gravity, but sharper. It pulled the ship down, twisted it sideways, and slammed it into the mountains. Crash was hard metal, screamed people, shouted alarms, flashed red and blue. Jack was thrown across the control Room then silence followed, only broken by soft sparks, and the crackle of burning wires. He woke with blood in his mouth and smoke in his lungs. His arm was cut, his head was spinning, but he was alive around him. The ship was broken pieces of wall, hanging like torn paper lights, flickering crew members lying still, some breathing, some nothing. Called for help, but no one answered. The radios were dead, the computers frozen, only static whispered in his ear. He grabbed a pack and climbed out through a broken hatch. The cold wind hit him hard. The sky above was dark with ash, the mountains sharp and cruel. The ground cracked under his feet like dry bone. He walked not knowing where he was going. Just away from the fire, away from the pain. He hoped to find help, maybe survivors, maybe a safe place, but he found something else, something he never expected first. He saw only a shadow moving between the rocks, fast and light, like smoke given shape. Then he saw her standing on a black stone, looking down at him, her silver eyes glowing in the red light of the dying sky. She did not speak. She did not move, she only watched him, as if waiting, as if deciding something. Jack froze, his heart pounded, his hand moved slowly to his side, where a small weapon was hidden, but he did not draw it. Not yet, not while she stood there, so calm, so quiet, so strange. Then she stepped forward one step, then to her bare feet, silent on the cold stone. Her hair floating in the wind, her face unreadable. Jack raised his hand and said hello, his voice cracked and dry from smoke and fear. She tilted her head as if she had never heard that word before, or maybe it had been a long time. She came closer, her eyes locked on his face, her lips parted slightly, and without warning she bit his arm, not deep, but fast, like a test. Pain shot through him, his vision blurred. His knees buckled, and he fell to the ground, shaking, thinking, this is it, this is how it ends. But it did not end. He blacked out and time slipped away, like water down a stream. When he woke, he was still breathing, his arm burned and throbbed, but he was not dead, not even close. He looked up and saw her sitting by a small fire, made from dry branches, her eyes still watching, but softer now, less like a weapon, more like a question. She said one word, human, not a question, not a greeting, just a word like a puzzle. Jack nodded slowly, not sure what else to do. She leaned closer and touched his forehead. Her hand was warm, not cold, like he expected. You not die, she said, her voice low and strange, like wind through a tunnel. Jack tried to speak, but his throat was dry. She handed him a small flask, and he drank water, clean and cold, filling his mouth and his mind. Why? He asked. She looked at him and shook her head. I do not know, she said. They sat there for a while in silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the wind blowing dust across the rocks. Jack looked at her, really looked, and saw not just an alien, not just a rumor or a monster, but someone tired, someone alone, someone who had seen too much and lived through too much. He did not know what would happen next. He did not know if she would help him or hurt him again. But in that moment, he knew one thing: she had a secret, and somehow he was a part of it now. Jack sat on a stone near the weak fire, his arm wrapped in soft leaves, his breath shaky but calm, his eyes never leaving the girl who had bitten him, and yet somehow saved him. The air was thin and cold, and the sky above was the color of rust clouds, moving slow, like tired giants. The land around them was dry and cracked, and full of silence. Only the fire spoke, in tiny sparks and soft hiss. The girl watched him with her glowing silver eyes, eyes that held no hate and no fear, only confusion and something that felt close to sadness. Her name was still unknown, but Jack had already given her one. In his mind he called her Flame, not just because of the color in her hair or the fire in her breath, but because she was both danger and warmth. Pointed to his arm, slowly, her fingers long and smooth and strange like the branches of a soft tree, and then she spoke again. Her voice light, but broken like old glass. You lived, she said. Not a question, but a fact. Jack nodded, still unsure of what to say, his mouth dry, his mind full of too many thoughts. How was he still breathing? What did she do to him? Why had he survived when so many others had not? Looked at her and said why. Mesh looked away, as if searching for an answer in the wind, then back at him, eyes blinking slow, like stars fading before sunrise. You are not them, she said, not like others. Jack thought about the stories told back on Earth. Stories of a girl who killed with a touch, who walked across battlefields without lifting a weapon, who left behind only bones and silence, the walking death they called her. And now here she was, sitting by a fire, sharing water and watching him breathe. He felt no anger, only wonder, and maybe a little fear, not of her but of what she was, and what had been done to her. She began to speak slowly, words coming like pieces of a broken map, hard to follow but clear in emotion. She told him of a place deep in space, where machines hummed and needles pricked, where her body was changed, her blood turned into something that killed without mercy. They made me, she said, voice thin like paper, voice heavy like stone. Not born this way, not wanted. Jack listened quietly as she told her story of escape, of long nights under strange skies, of hiding from hunters and waiting for death that never came. He asked why she stayed alone, why she never tried to find help, why she never came to Earth. She looked at him with eyes full of shadows and said, "All fear me, no place for me, only death follows." Leaned back and stared at the sky, thinking of how much pain this girl had held for so long, pain wrapped in beauty, pain hidden behind a quiet voice and glowing eyes. Wondered if maybe she had never known kindness, never known a friend, never felt safe. She offered him more water and a small fruit shaped like a tear, red and soft with sweet juice inside. He took it and smiled, and for the first time she smiled back, a small smile, but real. They stayed by the fire until the wind grew louder and the sky darker and the stars above began to show their faces, little lights blinking like curious eyes. Jack asked her if she had a name. She paused, then pointed to the sky, where a red star burned bright, and said, "Shira." Jack repeated it softly, and she nodded, her face calm. And still her name was Shira, and now it had been spoken by someone who did not want to kill her. That night they slept near the fire, not close but not far, the flames casting shadows on the stones, the silence between them no longer cold, no longer sharp. In the early morning, as the sun rose like fire over the mountains, Jack woke to find Shira standing near the edge of a cliff, her hair blowing like smoke, her hands open to the sky. She turned and looked at him, and in her eyes he saw something new, not sadness, not confusion, but hope, small and fragile like a seed in dry soil. The bite had not killed him, and now something else had begun to grow, something strange and quiet and strong. Not fear, not hate, not war, but maybe something like trust. Days passed slowly on the broken land, where fire once fell from the sky, and silence ruled the air. Jack and Shira stayed near the wreck of the ship, where cold winds curled around the rocks, and old trees bent toward the ground, like tired giants whispering secrets into the dust each morning. Jack woke before the sun, and looked out at the red sky, his eyes searching for movement or sound, but nothing came, only Shira, always watching from a distance, her silver eyes calm and full of thought. She did not speak much, and neither did Jack, not because they feared each other, but because silence had become their friend, a soft space where words were not needed. Every glance, every motion said enough. Jack spent his time fixing what little he could from the ship, searching for tools, gathering parts, hoping for a signal to reach the stars above, but most systems were dead wires, blackened screens, cracked and cold. The ship was no longer a bird, only a cage of metal, and she helped in her own way, never asking, never offering, just doing. She brought strange fruit from trees with blue bark, water from springs, hidden under stone, meat from wild beasts. She hunted with hands as silent as the wind. One evening Jack sat by the fire trying to write on a small pad, using the last bit of power from a broken scanner. He wanted to record the days, the things he saw, the girl he had met, but words came slowly, and his hand trembled with every letter. Shira came close and sat beside him, not too near but not far either. She watched his hand move, and then pointed to the stars above, and said, "Home." Jack looked up and nodded. "Earth," he said, then pointed to her, and waited. She did not answer right away. Instead, she took a stick and drew shapes in the dust, a tall tower, a ring around it, small dots floating near it, like stars dancing in a circle. She looked at the drawing and said, "Lab," then pointed to herself, and whispered, "May." Jack felt something sharp in his chest, not pain, but a kind of sorrow, deep and heavy like water in his lungs. She had not been born like others, not raised, not loved, just built like a machine, and sent into the world alone. He reached out slowly, and touched her shoulder, his fingers light like air. She did not move away, she only looked at him, and for the first time her eyes softened, no longer cold metal, but warm glass. They began to share words each day, little by little, pointing to things, saying their names: rock, fire, skybird, treehand, pain, joy, fear, food, laugh, cry. Each word a small bridge between their minds, each word a step forward. Shira learned fast, her voice still strange but steady, her face still quiet but curious. She asked questions with her eyes, and Jack answered with smiles, or drawings or sounds. They made their own language, one of looks and touches, and small sounds that only they understood. They trained together too. Jack showing her how to hold a tool, how to light a beacon, how to scan the stars. She taught him how to walk without sound, how to feel the air for danger, how to move like shadow through trees and stone. One day while searching the hills, Jack slipped and cut his leg deep. The blood poured and pain roared in his head, but Shira was there fast, her hands pressing soft green leaves on the wound, her breath steady, her eyes sharp. She carried him back through wind and ash, her arms strong, her steps sure and gentle. She laid him down near the fire, wrapped his leg with skill and care, and watched over him. Through the long night Jack dreamed of Earth that night, but also of Shira, her face in the stars, her hands in the soil, her voice calling him home in the morning. He woke to find her asleep beside him, not touching, not close, but near enough to feel her warmth, near enough to know he was not alone. They began to laugh more after that, small laughs, soft and strange like new music in an old room. They found joy in small things, the way fire cracked the shape of clouds, the sound of water on stone, the way their shadows danced together under the moon. And though the planet was still dark and the sky still burned and danger still walked just beyond the hills, they felt something new growing between them, something not made in a lab, not programmed or forced, something true, something real. Trust had become friendship, and friendship had begun to open doors they never thought could exist. The night came faster than before, dark clouds covering the sky like heavy blankets and cold winds sweeping over the hills with angry cries. Jack sat near the fire, his leg wrapped in healing slowly, while Shira watched the flames with a quiet face and deep eyes. Something in the air felt different, something heavy, something waiting. Jack felt it too, like a whisper in the wind, a message from the stars above or the ground below, something that wanted to be heard. He looked at Shira and asked softly, "Why are you like this? Why did your bite not kill me? Why does your touch not bring death to me like it does to others?" She did not answer at first, her eyes locked on the fire, her hands still and calm, her breath steady, but slow. She seemed to be reaching back into memories buried under dust and sorrow, memories she had tried to forget, but could no longer hide them. She began to speak, her voice low and strange like wind, moving through broken glass, her words coming slow and careful like steps on thin ice. "They took me," she said, her eyes fixed on the fire, her voice steady. "They found me when I was young, too young to know fear, too small to fight back. I was not alone then. I had a mother and a father and a name, but they took all of it away." Jack listened without a word, his heart sinking with every sentence, her pain pouring into the air like smoke rising from a dying flame. "They brought me to a place of steel and light, deep under a black sky, where the stars could not shine," she said. "They gave me numbers, not words. They put wires in my skin and lights in my veins. They called it a gift, but it was not a gift. It was a cage. They changed me. With machines and chemicals and sound they broke my body and built it again, not once, but many times, until I was something else, something they could not control. They said I would end wars. They said I would save their kind. They said I was their weapon, but I was never theirs. Not truly, not even once." Jack felt his throat tighten, his hands clench into fists. Not from fear, but from something deeper, something like rage, something like sorrow. "They sent me to battles," she said. "They dropped me on planets full of life and told me to walk. And when I walked, things died. I did not need guns. I did not need blades. My breath was enough. My blood was fire. My bite was death." She turned to him now, her eyes wet but not blinking. "I did not want it," she said. "I begged them to stop, but they only smiled and said I was perfect, said I was the future. So I ran," she said. "I killed the guards and broke the gates, and took a ship and flew away, far from their eyes, far from their hands. I came here because no one comes here. No one looks, no one asks. I stayed," she said. "I walked, and I watched, and I waited. I hoped the death inside me would fade. I hoped the stars would forget me, but they did not." Jack moved closer, his voice gentle and warm. "But why me?" he asked. "Why am I still alive? Why does it not work?" Omexera looked at him and shook her head. "I do not know," she said. "Maybe your blood is different. Maybe your mind is stronger. Or maybe I did not want to hurt you." Jack looked into her eyes and saw not a weapon, not a monster, but a person, a broken person, who had never been given a choice, who had never been given peace. He reached out and took her hands slowly, gently. Her skin was warm, her fingers soft, like any other girl. "You are not a curse," he said. "You are not what they made you. You are more than that." She blinked once, then twice, her lips parting just a little. Her voice a whisper. Maybe the fire crackled, and the wind slowed the sky above, clearing just enough to let one star shine through the clouds, bright and small and full of light. They sat there in silence, to lives tangled by fate, to souls caught between death and hope, to hearts learning what it meant to be free. And though the truth was heavy, and the future unknown, something had changed, something had shifted the moment the story was told. Not fear, not hate, not silence, but truth, and truth is where healing begins. The wind returned stronger than before, bringing with it a cold that cut through bone, and a sound that made the trees shake in fear. Jack and Shira stood near the edge of the cliff, their eyes watching the sky as black shapes moved through the clouds, smooth and fast, like shadows swimming in water. Shira stepped back, her face pale, her breath held deep inside her chest, her hands trembling. Though she tried to hide it, she knew what those shapes meant. She had seen them before. "And every time they brought death with them, they found me," she whispered, not to Jack, but to herself, her voice weak, like old paper folding under rain. Jack looked at her and saw something he had never seen in her eyes. Not calm, not sorrow, not pain, but fear, real fear, the kind that steals words and freezes hearts. "Who are they?" he asked, his voice low and steady, his hand already moving to his belt where the last piece of working tech remained. A flare made for emergencies, a small tool meant to signal. The Skixira closed her eyes for a moment, then spoke. "Hunters," she said, "they are the ones who made me, and now they want me back, or dead." Jack felt the weight of her words, and knew they would not leave without blood. He reached for her hand, and squeezed it tight and said, "We fight together." She looked at him, her silver eyes shining in the weak light, her lips pressed tight as she nodded once, her body no longer trembling, her heart now steady. They moved fast, gathering what they could from the wrecked tools, wires, parts of broken shields, anything they could turn into traps or weapons. Jack worked like a machine, his mind focused, his hands sure. Shira followed his lead, learning quickly, her movements silent and smooth. Together they built traps in the rocks, spikes made from ship metal wires stretched across narrow paths, small fires hidden to burn bright when needed. Each trap a whisper of hope, a chance to survive one more hour, one more breath. As night fell, the ships landed without sound. Black ships with no lights, only shadows moving in the mist. Tall figures stepped out, wearing armor that shimmered like oil blades in their hands, and cold hunger in their eyes. Shira stood in front of the fire, her arms open, her voice clear. "I am here," she said. "Leave the human and take me along." Jack shouted no, his voice cracking like thunder across the stones. He stepped beside her, shoulder to shoulder, his flare in one hand and a long pipe in the other. The hunters paused, surprised, perhaps at her words, perhaps at his courage. Then they charged fast, and without warning, the first trap worked. Fire rose from the ground, blinding light, forcing two hunters to fall back, screaming as their armor burned. The second trap followed, metal spikes snapping up to catch one in the leg. He stumbled and fell, howling in pain. Jack swung his pipe with all his strength, striking another in the chest, knocking him off balance. Shira moved like lightning, her hands glowing, her body moving with speed and grace. She touched the ground, and it cracked, a wave of heat spreading out, knocking one hunter into the air. But they were many, and strong, and fast, and soon they broke through the traps, pushing closer step by steps. Shira screamed, a sound that shook the sky, a sound full of power and rage and sorrow. She rushed forward, her body glowing with red light, her hands striking like fire, one by one. The hunters fell, their armor melting, their screams lost in the wind. Jack watched her fight and saw not a weapon but a storm, not a monster but a force of nature. But then she fell to her knees, her hands shaking, her face pale, the power inside her burning. Too bright, too fast. Jack ran to her, catching her before she hit the ground, her body weak, her breath shallow, her voice barely a whisper. "I cannot hold it much longer." One last hunter rose behind them, blade raised, ready to strike. Jack turned just in time and fired the flare straight into the face of the enemy. The light burst like a star, the heat blinding. The hunter screamed and fell into the fire. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of flames and the soft wind whispering through the rocks. Shira lay in Jack's arms, her body still, her eyes closed. He held her close, his hands shaking, his voice breaking. "Please stay awake, please stay with Mesh." Opened her eyes just a little and smiled the smallest smile, her voice soft like a feather. "You stayed always," he said, "always." The sun rose slowly over the burned hills, light creeping across the cold ground like a soft hand waking the world after a long night. The sky turned from black to red, from red to gold, and the stars faded one by one, as if hiding from what had happened. Below, Jack sat on the cold stone, holding Shira in his arms, her body light, her skin pale, her eyes closed like she was sleeping, but her breath still came slow and steady, like waves on a quiet shore around them. The fires still burned, smoke rising into the sky carrying the scent of metal and ash. The bodies of the hunters lay still, weapons, broken armor cracked their mission, failed their silence. Finally he looked at Shira, his heart heavy, his eyes wet, not with fear, not with sorrow, but with something deeper, something he had never felt before, something he could not name. "You did it," he whispered, though his voice trembled. "You saved us. You saved me." Her eyes opened, just a little silver light shining faint behind long lashes. Her lips moved and the voice came out weak and quiet, like a song remembered in a dream. "I am tired, Jack. I am tired of running, of hiding, of hurting. I never wanted to fight, I only wanted to live." He held her tighter, his voice stronger now than live. "Shira, live with me. We will leave this place. We will find help. We will find peace." She smiled, a small soft smile full of warmth and sadness. Her hand reached up to touch his face, her fingers light as wind. "I do not know if I can. I do not know if I have time, but you made me feel like more than what they made me. You gave me back my name." Jack's chest ached. not from pain, but from love, pure and real and strong love, that had grown from trust, from kindness, from something broken becoming whole. Again he kissed her forehead, gentle and slow, then lifted her in his arms and stood the sky above now, wide and clear. The storm passed, the darkness gone. Step by step, he walked back to the wreckage of the ship, to the place where it all began, his mind full of memories of laughter, and quiet talks of shared meals and soft smiles of a girl, who was not a monster but a hero, a friend, a light in the dark. The beacon still blinked on the edge of the broken wing, its red light, a signal to the sky, calling for help, calling for hope. Jack set her down gently beside it, then activated the final flare, sending a beam of light into the sky like a firework rising to meet the stars. He sat beside her, his hand holding hers warm and firm as they waited, the wind soft around them, the silence no longer heavy but peaceful. Time passed slowly, but then a sound broke the air, a low hum growing louder. Lights appeared over the hills, a ship descending smooth and silver, its engines quieted, doors opening wide. Humans rushed out, medics and soldiers and scouts, all moving fast and sure, their faces shocked at the sight of Jack and the alien girl by his side. They asked questions, they offered help. Jack said only one thing: save her, save her, please. The medics worked quickly, their tools glowing, their hands moving with care. Shira's eyes stayed on Jack, never blinking, never afraid. Her lips moved again, and she said, "Thank you." He nodded and whispered, "Always," again, his voice strong now, like a promise carved in stone. They flew back to the stars, the planet growing small below them, the past left behind, but not forgotten, the pain now, part of the story, not the end of it. Weeks passed. Shira slept most days, healing slowly, her body weak but growing stronger. Jack stayed by her side, reading to her, talking to her, holding her hand every night. And then one morning she opened her eyes wide and clear, her voice strong and calm like the wind before rain. "I am ready," she said, "ready to live." Jack smiled and took her hand. They walked out into the world together, not as soldier and weapon, not as alien and man, but as two souls bound by fire and choice. People stared at first, some afraid, some confused, but many curious, and more than a few full of wonder. They told her story slowly, carefully, with truth and care, and the world listened. The world learned it years later. Jack stood on a stage holding a small book in his hands, the crowd quiet, the stars above bright and still. He looked up and said, "She was called the Walking Death, but to me she was life, she was hope, she was my friend." And in the front row, Shira smiled, her eyes shining not with silver but with pure. End was not what anyone expected, and that made it beautiful.